Hi, this is Lori, and welcome to my series on adventures in soldering. This is part 6 of the Make Your Uno kit and our final episode. We'll be using our wing shield that we soldered in part 5, and we'll be making some projects where we add some other components to our Synth Shield and Uno that we soldered. Well, here's the wing shield that we soldered in part 5. It sandwiches in between the Uno and the Synth Shield. So the Synth Shield plugs in here on the top and it goes into the bottom. The bottom plugs into the Uno. So we get a kind of a sandwiching kind of thing. And using these little screw terminals, we can access the GPIO pins on the Uno. Now we need to know which of the pins are available to us. And from Electro Music's website, he made a nice diagram here that I'm borrowing. And you can see everything in green is open, but we could connect more things into. So we have almost all the digital pins except for D9, which is used by the speaker. And then these analog pins here we can't use. And it just points out the ground and power that might be useful to us as well. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the LEDs to the 4-step sequencer program. If you remember, they were in the test script that wasn't really written for the synthesizer shield. So it seems like a good idea. Let's add in the LEDs, and we'll be able to flash them for each of the notes that we control with our potentiometers on the synthesizer shield. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the setup for the 4-step sequencer with the LEDs. And you could run the original code that we got for the test. And if you set it up as I have it over here, it's going to run with that code too. What I didn't like about that code was the light flashes whether you have that note kind of turned on so you can hear it or not. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if the LED with that only lit when there was a real tone that you were hearing, and otherwise it would stay off. So that was kind of what I thought of. And when I looked at DIY Electro Music site, when he suggested adding these LEDs, which I thought was a great idea, let's get them in there. He just went back to the test code. He didn't add them to his code that he wrote, which I thought was way easier to understand and I thought a little better written. So I went back to his 4-step sequencer, and then I tried to add the LEDs in, and I think I've been successful. I've got the wing shield from Adafruit now in between, so it doesn't quite fit in there anymore exactly as we might want it to. So it's just kind of wedged in a little bit. And then you can see I've just taken some jumper wires here and connected up the ground, and I made a ground rail here on this precariously balanced, everything's precariously balanced I should say in this setup here, breadboard up here at the top. And then I've attached the LEDs to pins 4, 5, 6, and 7. So with current limiting resistors. So that's how it's set up. And let's just take a quick look at the code next. Here's the 4-step sequencer that DIY Electro Music put together. And I have taken it and added in the LED pins. So we need to define them. I put them in an array called LED pins 4, 5, 6, and 7, as we've seen. And then all the rest of this is the same. I'm not going to go through a detailed explanation of this code, so if you haven't seen that, you should go back to part 4 of this series on the Make Your Uno kit, where I talk through this code pretty heavily. So yeah, I limited the notes that I was using here just because it's a little easier to select when you have fewer notes with that potentiometer. When you have too many, it's just very hard to select the note maybe you're trying to get, or to get something that sounds decent. All right, so I talk a lot about that in the part 4, so enough of that. All right, so we'll need to set up the LEDs in pin mode and make them output. So just loop through there and get them set up. And then when I first thought about adding the LEDs in, I thought, oh man, that's probably going to be hard. And I thought, yeah. But anyways, it turns out to not be very hard at all. Just had to think about it for a few minutes. So here, where we will turn on the sound, if there really is if the pot is turned on so that we get a sound for that step, then at the same time we turn on the tone, we'll just turn on the LED. And then you think, well, I've got to get the LED off again before the next tone comes in. And that's simple enough. Before we increment playing note, which kind of goes through the 4 potentiometers, before we increment it, we'll make sure we turn off that LED that's on. And so there's a little delay in here to set the tempo. So we need it before we hit this increment and loop back around again. So yeah, I think that it seems to work, and it wasn't really that hard. Just adding 2 nicely placed digital rights in the best spot. Okay, so let's run this code and see how it goes. Okay, I have it on, and I'm going to move my attention to the circuit. So it's actually running, but because I have the volume down and I have none of the notes turned on yet, we're seeing nothing because I don't turn any of the lights on. Now, if we had had that for the original test program 4-step sequencer that they gave us to test it with, these lights would be moving to whatever tempo we currently had set. All right, so first I'll put a little volume up. And I tried to be careful with that volume because it seems to be very sensitive. All right, and we'll add one note. And I don't think I gave it enough volume, so let's try a little more volume. Okay, I think we got that, and you can see it working, but none of the other 3 lights are going because we don't have those notes turned on yet. So let's turn on the next one. Alright, I like that. And let's do a third one. Sounds a little better. And we'll add the 4th one in. And then we could speed it up by changing the tempo. That's as fast as we can do it with the way the program's coded right now. But we could change that in the code and make it go even faster. We can slow it way down. And take the notes out. And there we go. So we're finally getting to use our GPIO pins and add some other functionality to our synthesizer, and I think that is fabulous. Well, I got pretty inspired after seeing the LEDs flash. I really liked that, and I thought, gosh, I'd like to have that around so that I could, share it with family and friends, and I don't want to keep a breadboard set up all the time just to connect to this. So I wanted to make something permanent, so I'm finally getting a chance to use some of my breadboard prototypes, breadboard style prototype boards. Wow, that's a lot. Anyways, so I got real inspired and did some soldering so that I could have this permanently, and I decided to use this half-size breadboard that I have. I opened these a while ago on one of my mail bags, and I wanted to have them around because I knew I'm very familiar with breadboards, and so there's a lot less wiring because you have holes the various holes are wired like a breadboard, or connected like a breadboard. So you have power rails and ground rails, and then you have your rows or columns. And so I've had these for a little while, and I knew an opportunity would eventually come, and here we are. So it might not have needed this large a piece, but I figured I could also add some things. There's some room. So I put my 4 LEDs on here and current limiting resistors. And then the question was how to make it so that I can just store this somewhere, but then it would be easy to plug in. So I used some of my 90-degree headers here, and I clipped them down just to ones, and so I can plug that in to catch each of the lights. And then I created a plug over here for the power and ground, and then I connected them so that it would go around both sides. So I only need, for this circuit to work, I only need the ground, but if I ever add anything else, then I have the power connected up to, and both the power and the ground are connected to both sides. So that, I'll have to say, the design of these things is pretty nice, and I really appreciated how it was put together once I started trying to lay this out. So I just thought I'd demonstrate it because I'm just so pleased with it. So I'll plug my ground into the ground, and then we'll plug each of the pins into the proper LED. So I mostly had these colored so I would know what went to what. I actually think I have it wired better now for use. And now we need to just get some power to our board. So I just have this plugged into a USB power socket right now. So we got power, and I'm going to bring this up just to make sure this camera always tries to focus. So let's see. All right, so let me put the tempo about midway. Now let's turn on our first note. And we could add our second one. And our third one. Yeah, it works great. And now I can keep this maybe, in a little box with all of this so that I can show off, adding some things to the circuit. And now we're going to get on to the next GPIO circuit that we're going to test out. And this will be the second project that we'll do in this episode. We're going to create a little piano. This project comes from DIY Electro Music. There was a ton of stuff to do on that website, and I know I've discussed it heavily. I learned so much from that website. It definitely, if you get this Make Your Uno kit, you should really spend some time. There's a lot more that could be done than I'm covering, so it's a great way to really make the most of this kit. So one of the things that caught my eye was creating a little piano out of button switches and connecting them up to the unused digital pins on our Uno. And that sounded like fun. So we're going to do that as the second project in this episode. So with our piano, we get a full octave of notes, but a lot of songs use more than an octave of notes. So I looked around and found a couple simple songs that we can play. You Are My Sunshine and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We can easily play with just an octave's worth of notes to get you started. So if you come up with any other simple songs that we could play with our piano within one octave, please put that in the comments, because that's fun, and it'd be nice to have a little repertoire of songs that we could play on that piano. All right, let's get going. I took the code for the 12-tone piano from DIY Electro Music, and you can see here we're defining the frequencies for the 12 tones that we'll need for our piano. Then we'll put the speaker on pin 9, because that's the way it's set up on our synthesizer shield. And then here are the pin numbers for the keys. We're going to use 0 through 8, skipping 9, and then 10, 11, 12, 13. Then we'll just count up the number of keys we have and set up the notes array, just like we've been doing in a lot of these programs. Then we'll set up the pin modes for the button switches, and we'll use pull-up resistors for those. And here you can see that we're going to check to see if a button has been pressed. If it has, we're going to play that note. If not, then we're going to make sure the note is off. So if we have something playing, then playing will not equal -1. And gosh, I hate all those things coming up. And then we'll go ahead and play a note. And you see put here, if you try to play two things at the same time, whatever one got registered last is the one you're going to hear. So you can't play more than one tone at a time like you can on a real piano. But still, it works pretty well, and it's pretty simple. So yeah, and then this playing just tells us which key we need, and that's how we're going to pull up the correct frequency. So yeah, it works pretty well. And so now let's see it work. All right, let's go for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Well, I won't be winning America's Got Talent anytime soon. Okay, well, I got inspired just like with the LEDs, and I decided to solder a permanent version of the piano, the 12-tone piano, and I'm pretty proud of this one. I did a decent job of soldering. And I used another one of my prototype boards. This particular proto board, let me bring it into view. It's each set of 3 is connected, but it does have a place where you can make power and ground rails if you want to. I just made a ground rail, and I used the same idea of just using those headers, chopped it down to plug in the ground pin here. And then I did more of the keyboard arrangement with the buttons, since I was going to make this sort of permanent. And then you'll see that I actually wrote the notes up there, so you know what note is what. So as you play the buttons, you'll be able to play. And then on the back side, I actually wrote where the pins went. Now, I did find something interesting as I was just trying to lay out these wires so they lay nice and flat and not cross over each other. I actually ended up taking this white button, which is kind of next in line. I put it here, and then this button that it should be before it ends up being in this socket. So yeah, as you go back along the way, it increases, but then here it goes to 10, 8, and then there's another inversion here, and 13. So I thought it was nice to put some labels so that can know how to connect it up and get it ready to go. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how this came out, and it'll be with the other one that I made out of this episode. So now I have both of these more permanent to show off some of the things we can do with the synthesizer that we've soldered in this series of episodes. But yeah, I'm really pleased. I'm so glad I took the time to to try to learn to solder better before I got to this, because I can tell you if I hadn't done that, I'm pretty sure I would have never jumped into making these, because I would have just thought that's a lot of work and I'm sure I'll mess it up and waste a lot of time. And now I feel so much more confident to do things like this. So very excited. So let me get this set up and we'll play a song on this one. All right, we got everything hooked up according to the guide on the back. So let me try to play You Are My Sunshine on this. Well, there you have it. You are my sunshine. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this Make Your Uno kit. Ended up with 6 episodes, and I hope that it shows you it's a fun kit to do. I really enjoyed it, and there was a lot to learn, and there's plenty more that can be done with this kit. So yeah, maybe I'll do some more things, and if I do something super exciting, maybe I'll make some additional episodes. But for now, I want to thank you for watching.